This isn't a regular dystopia warning. This is me slightly off my knockers on coffee. Oh, still got a little bit left. That was cold and grainy. This is me peaking on a double shot. Freestyling my general thoughts on the election campaign so far and the leaders' debates. And what comes next? Safe to say no one saw a snap election coming, including the Conservatives. They've been scrambling around trying to find candidates, and I'm going to bring you a video with all the and all the telling you the kind of the calibre, I use that word loosely, of Tory candidates, many of which are, you know, proving my examples correct. You know the time that I said, oh, that person's about as popular as a Tory and under 16s disco. Well, it turns out that one of them was filming kids at a teen disco. Proof, if you ever needed it, that they've just, you know, satire. Gone. Starting to feel like a sweary Nostradamus. So yeah, I think that they were quite astute in wanting to oust him, because going through yet another leadership campaign, like their 1000th in a couple of years, would not have been as humiliating as letting Sunak try and do an election campaign, because, oh my titty fucking Christ. It's Truss levels of mad. It's letting Father Dougal do a funeral levels of mad. There came a point the other day where I, of all people, came perilously close to, on a basic human level, pitying him. Because he's just like a broken robot. He's like a robot running on Encarta 95 software, just laying there on the floor going, you know, albeit a robot with 5 houses that's worth nearly £1 billion. So you know what? Fuck him. I snapped out of that pretty quickly when, against all logic and sense, he continued to double down on the £2,000 tax lie. Everyone has disproven it. At this point, I've just got visions of him like cowering in a corner with, you know, one of his snug little sweaters pulled up over his head. People trying to approach him like Sunak, you all right, mate? He's just malfunctioning. You know, like £2,000, £2,000. Sorry, 2,094. Bit awkward, wasn't it, when people did the sums and found that the Tories have raised taxes by £13,000. But it's just like the Tory ads thing all over again. You know, what, like 80-90% of Tory ads were found to be misleading or just completely made up, compared to like 0% from the opposition and other parties. It's like when they turned CCHQ into Fact Check UK during the leadership debates that time. They're called the Conservatives for a reason, because they have to con people into voting against their best interests. And they do that by brazenly lying, because they know if you repeat a lie enough, it'll get into people's heads, and what's true will cease to matter. The leadership debates have been dire. The Judy Etchingham one on ITV was a very, very poor format. You cannot condense your policies and aims into 45 seconds. That's mental. Also proves that Sunak really does not like women in positions of authority. This has been proven in the Commons, in select committees. He talks over them, or he gets ultra petulant, or he just ignores them. If I was going to advise Labour, it would be to stop, for the love of God, Starmer talking about his dad being a toolmaker. It's starting to sound mental. Mate, just be yourself. Just say, I grew up with nothing. My mum wasn't well. We just about got by. That's more relatable than just repeating rehearsed scripted lines. The debate last night was, you know, a slightly better format. I would say the most impressive person on that panel was Stephen Flynn. He is someone that you want in your corner if you're going into battle. Yeah, he is someone that I would fear personally going up against in a debate. Thought it was a bit unedifying that Penny Mordaunt, you know, the helmet hair, and Rayner scrapped it out a bit. People don't like that. Toad of Toad Hall proves that he's all bluff and blunder, but what do you expect from a guy that is not running a party but a business in which he's the key shareholder? Therefore he is effectively just a salesman. Talking of Farage, there's a lot of talk of him overturning that 24,000 majority, but people are thinking that when he does, if he does, and there's every possibility he could. I know Clacton, I live not far from it. And nowadays, I never underestimate people's wanton desire to believe bullshitters. But if he does, there's a lot of talk of him defecting to the Conservative Party. So he's going to use those people who don't want to vote Tory, who are voting Reform for him, to get to where he needs to go, because this is what he's all about. And then what he is likely to do is, when the Tories kind of regroup with what is broadly only their maddest survivors remaining. There'll be a leadership challenge and he'll just defect and run for the Tories. What's left of the Conservative Party? It's not going to be the people that are going to rebuild it in the image of what the Tory party used to be. It's going to be all the insane ones. They're going to continue to be beholden to keeping up with reform. They're not going to get any more moderate. In fact, I would wager they're going to get even worse. Another important point that I need to make about the debates is that the progressive fringe parties, right, not reform, I put the kind of progressive fringe parties in a different box. So there's like Lib Dems, you know, Greens, Plaid Cymru, SNP. They go in that box. The people that you'd want to have a drink with at a party, right? Reform go in a different box, which I'm going to kick off up here. It's much easier for those progressive fringe parties to offer the moon on a stick because they're never going to be in a position where they actually have to budget or they actually have to, you know, implement any of the things that they are offering people, which are things that people want. They're things that I want. There's a big difference between being in a position to deliver that and again saying what people want to hear, isn't there? I've got no beef whatsoever with any of the fringe parties, you know, not Green, but Green in particular are pushing the whole, you know, Labour have become Tories line, which just increases voter apathy. And they're not being particularly honest about first past the post, which means that they can only win in about 4 constituencies. And I hope they do win in those constituencies that they can make gains in. But they're not inheriting the poison chalice of an absolutely shattered economy. And they're not dealing with anywhere near the levels of shit that Labour have to deal with from the scourge of the right-wing, you know, Tory media, are they? They're not dealing with Lord Rothermere and Murdoch up their arse. They're not afraid to put one foot wrong and have it all come tumbling down, hence the Ming Vase strategy. And Labour are going to have to actually implement the policies that they're talking about. So they're playing it safe because they know that they're inheriting hell. The worst economic situation probably since the war that any kind of progressive government would ever have to inherit. It's not 97. Things can only get better, but they're going to take time to get better, I'd imagine. And that's not to say that we shouldn't have progressives kind of like redressing the balance. I mean, I wish Labour could say Brexit's a big pile of bullshit. That guy there, Farage, he has ruined our politics. Cameron should never have called the referendum. We're all poorer whilst his mates have got richer. I wish that they could come out and say Britain has, which is true, historically always benefited financially from immigration. But it's more difficult for Labour to do that because of the conditions that the Tories have set. The trap that they've set. Unprecedented division. 1,000 different raging little culture wars which they're left to counter because they don't get to set the narrative, the government does. Labour having to respond under these conditions doesn't make them right wing. So the next government, which is, you know, very likely to be led by Keir Starmer unless he shits himself in public, even if he does, even if he shat himself in public, he's still probably going to win it. But they're going to have to like de-radicalise people. After just, you know, the hell that has been caused by populist figures that are just greedy and out for themselves like Farage and Johnson, and the raging culture wars set by the mad factions of the Conservative Party that have gone ultra-nationalist and right-wing to compete with people like Farage. So it's going to be a bloody mess, you know? It's not going to be an easy ride, but all we can do is keep them on their toes and hope they sort it out. And that's why it's so important to vote tactically to get out or keep out a Conservative, you know. And there's no way in hell that I would be backing Labour as an alternative if I didn't think that they were broadly sound. And I have to say, I think Keir Starmer's done a pretty good job to turn it around in this time frame. Anyway, on it goes. I've got 4 weeks left of this. 4 weeks.